we better get into it, JP, because there's a fucking lot to cover. And this is state of play as of 3:52 p.m. On the 23rd of January. We'll see what breaks through the day and through the week. But the reason we're here, JP, is WWE and Netflix have struck a deal to move Monday Night Raw to Netflix beginning 2025 for the low price, JP, of $500 million a year. Come absolutely out of nowhere. I listened to a bit of Observer Radio this morning. They clearly had no idea this was coming. Nobody had any idea this was coming today. Deal is apparently $5 million per year over 10 years, which is just an astronomical figure all in all. We're talking crazy numbers. 5 billion, I think it is the other rough back of the napkin maths I've seen stated on this one. Obviously, we're as at time of recording, getting little bits of detail coming through. It looks to be a 5-year deal initially, but a 10-year deal really. Basically, it's a 10-year deal with an option at 5 years, for Netflix to decide if they want to continue on with the deal, which is kind of works on both sides, because I've seen obviously there's WWE quotes out there. Nick Khan, who's doing a victory lap on all this, obviously wanted the 10 years. If they're going to sign off all of their rights, then it needs to be a long-term deal for them. But from the Netflix side, gives them an out at 5 years, or crucially, the option at 10 years to double it and go 20. So this could be a very, very long-term deal for Raw. What it means is that Netflix is going to be the new home for Raw in the US, Canada, the UK, crucially for us, and Latin America. And the deal also stipulates that Netflix will be the home, and this is for our listeners, crucially, for WWE shows and specials outside of the US, including not just Raw, SmackDown and NXT we're going to have on Netflix, as well as what is described as tentpole events, i.e. the PLEs, like WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Royal Rumble, etc. No indication on the back catalogue at this point. You would have to imagine the deal includes that as well, JP. There's lots going on. WWE stock prices has gone way up. There's some conversation about what happens with the USA deal, which in America runs out in August this year. So what are they going to do to bridge that gap to January next year? We've got questions on what day it's going to be, how many hours it's going to be. But the thing we do know, JP, is this is an absolutely gigantic story. Hence why, for the YouTube viewers, we've drafted you in here on a work day, JP. Who knew it was going to come down the pipeline today, the day after Spotlight?
Not for this, because Netflix weren't even mentioned in any of the likely bidders for this. They were not mentioned at all. There was never anything about this where you thought, okay, Netflix are in the hunt. Amazon Prime, yeah. Why? Because Amazon Prime have obviously dabbled in lots of live sports and live sports events and got a lot more experience of it. I'm looking in terms of Netflix. What are their live events they've done? It was a Chris Rock special that they did live, and a live Love Is Blind reunion special in April as well, which clearly I never watched. And then things like the Screen Actors Guild Awards. But this is different kind of level. And I suppose there's many different things for it. From a financial perspective, it's enormous. Like you're talking 5 billion. At the very worst, it's 2.5 billion. Where I'm kind of confused, and I think this is going to come out of the next few days, is obviously how much are these other rights deals in these other territories, like Australia and Asia? How much are they actually worth? And then when you put them into the deal, like how much of that is going to be, like effectively how good a deal is it going to be? We're not really going to know that until those contracts have lapsed and we kind of know where they are. In the main, do I think it's a good deal? I didn't see it happening, because the thing you always hear about Netflix is how much kind of trouble they're in. Like in essence, that there's other streaming services that have really caught up on them. They're no longer the trailblazer in the market, but one of the things that they are in terms of there's financial difficulties. They run massively in debt. They produce massive mega budget films like Lift with Kevin Hart, which again, just to state, absolute shit. Don't watch it. Don't waste your fucking time in it. You already imagine the film in your head. But I digress. They are wanting to do the ad tier launch. So the idea, and I think I saw it again, I caught up on loads of the Discord in like 10 minutes before recording. Goes like, I want to see what the chat is around this. And I saw Chris Wilson go, good friend of ours, just saying 3-hour uninterrupted Raw, fucking hell. And I just thought that just seems like hell. And obviously, the thing that they are doing is they've got an ads tier launch because that's how they want to raise revenue. It does feel like it's a good deal for WWE because obviously it is enormous. It's for Netflix. It gets them into the live sports market, but I can't help but feel that WWE is a holding pattern for bigger rights packages to come along the way. Whether it
prove
be
they can do it.
NFL, prove they can do it, basically, and they can kind of cope with it. It's also a good deal for AEW. And these are the other things.
Oh, we'll get into that.
Yeah, because it takes like Raw off the table and you see the value of this. And it's like, shit, if it's going for this much money, then by definition, what is the challenger brand kind of worth in comparison? So there's a whole series of knock-on effects. Haven't even got into the fact they give Rock $30 million.
We'll get into that too.
Shits and giggles. Christ.
It's absolutely nuts. Like Nick Carter's played a blinder. Should probably be a Wrestling Observer Hall of Famer already at this point. Like this is like, because the thing about it is, if you're going to go on a streaming service, then you're taking yourself out of the shop window. As much as we can talk about the death of linear TV and stuff like that, it's still, Raw and SmackDown on, national TV, at least in America, is a gigantic part of how I can't believe you get new fans in 2023, 2024, but you do. It's how you get new fans and how you're not hidden away somewhere. If you're going to be on a streamer though, this is the perfect way to do it. They're on a long-term deal for a fucking boatload of money. Bearing in mind, again, in the US, it's only Raw. SmackDown will be available on USA still, so they'll still have that, no matter, depending on obviously which day it's on. But if you're gonna be on a streamer, be on the fucking biggest one, and that's Netflix. Like we don't have to say what Netflix is, do we? Like everyone knows what fucking Netflix is. I haven't had a subscription in a couple of years, JP, so I'm gonna have to get mine back now. But like from the WWE end, it's an absolute blind. They can ask questions about Netflix's business model, and you're probably right. It's more of a long-term kind of play, but it's absolutely insane. Like for what they're getting for it, and for WWE, like it couldn't be better. It just couldn't be a better situation. It is unreal, and I think from a fan point of view, it's going to be a positive as well. Probably means the end of the fucking network. I think especially for us lot, like I haven't been a network subscriber in a little while, but presuming the back catalogue goes on Netflix, so there's going to be no need to have that either, is there? But like for us as well, like right now, if you want to watch Raw to SmackDown, and they're like, you've got to spend 30 quid a month on TNT Sports and subsidize the footy and stuff. For a Netflix subscription, you'll have Raw, you'll have SmackDown, you'll have the pay-per-views. It's a massive win from our point of view as well.
Oh, I think it is. And I know that in terms of the Peacock deal, is that 2026 that's up to come for that? And you would
and we've still got that money too. Yeah, there's still a lot to sell.
They're still getting that. They've still got that bit of it, which is worth fucking fortune in and of itself. But it's like, and again, I've seen this point brought up. I find it hard to think that the real archive footage isn't going to be going on to there. But if you're wanting to watch like your Raws of the world, where's it going to go on to? Where's SmackDown going to end up on? And the rest, SmackDown is ending up on it, just to be for you,
for us.
Viewers, is that right? For us, it is. Okay. Like it makes Netflix kind of even more essential. They're probably going to have to reformat Netflix because WWE are going to be a big part of what you see on the front page of Netflix. It has to be because this is like such a massive play for them, and the fact that it is like such a big story. It's the big entertainment story of the day. The only other one I said the big entertainment story of the day is the Academy Award nominations as well. But this is very much like kind of up there because there's just such long-term kind of interest. And you've mentioned I'm keeping an eye on the stock price at this point in time. It's currently up by 8. It's coming up to 19.
Live numbers there on the screen there, 18 to 19% up on open. Like, look at that. They can see it literally on Yahoo stock right now if you're not watching the video. The reason TKO is up 20% because this was such a fucking gigantic deal. They had like I said, I don't know if you had the chance to see the clip yet of Dwayne the Rock Johnson front and center as TKO, and Vince McMahon without his fucking evil mustache front and center as well. Triple H kind of to the side, but he's still there and he's still been tagged in all of the stuff and is a big part of this. But
he's not smiling.
Taking over the news cycle. No,
This is the
no.
this is a kick in the bollocks, isn't it? The Rock gets over it yet again as the biggest star, as he should do, really, in many ways. I do want to see Matty's face put onto
Oh,
onto the Rock's
oh,
body
Matty's
there
winning
as well.
today. Like WWE's winning.
When is he lost?
International fans are definitely winning, and Matty's winning. I think we've found today. I mean, there's obviously a lot we don't know about the deal. Again, starting in January 2025. Will Raw stay on Monday? There's different reports saying different things. Variety doesn't mention Mondays, but Sports Business Journal does mention it being a Monday property. We'll see if that sticks, because it could be any night. It doesn't have to be, again, but practically a live stream on Netflix can be whenever it needs to be. And if you want to avoid Monday Night Football, then they could move it somewhere else. Obviously, the VOD is going to be a gigantic part of the package as well. Maybe they'll want to stick with Monday just with that tradition, year on year. If you're already going to be taking it off TV, you don't want to upset people's patterns completely and put it on a fucking Thursday or something like that. So maybe it stays Monday. Does it stay 3 hours? I don't think that's a given. I genuinely don't. It's going to be whatever it's worth for Netflix. Like, I guess if there's an ad tier, you sell more ads on a longer show. But like, if you took that out the equation, a half-hour show versus a 3-hour show, does it actually make a difference to Netflix? It's just got to be as good as it can be, I suppose. More watch hours and such, and that's why you get so many long-form Netflix shows on there. But there'll be a happy balance. It won't be the same computation as we've had. I did read that today. Apparently, it's been almost 12 years since Raw went 3 hours. JP, we've had almost as many 3-hour Raws now. As we're getting to the point we're gonna have in a couple of years more 3-hour Raws than 2-hour Raws. But maybe I'm clinging to stuff there. But I could, look, I said to Matt today on the Discord, as long as the distance between Hogan, Andre, and Steve Austin winning the WWF title, that's how long we've had 3-hour Raws. But that could be subject to change. All of these things are in limbo now. That's another thing that might affect AEW and the like. Mondays might open up, Fridays might open up, WWE might go on Wednesdays to fuck with them. Who knows? Like, there's so many. Got a year now to kind of speculate on this stuff.
Also, what's the chances of SmackDown being moved away from Fridays because of USA, and USA thinking, well, we don't want to be up against anything on Fridays, and Wednesday is a better night for them because they don't want to go up against like Monday Night Football is always going to be the issue, and that's not something that's going to be losing any popularity anytime soon. But like I say, there's a lot of kind of unknowns for this, and one of the saying about the likely, unlikely in terms of like the movement around the nights, and I think we both kind of felt that this is something that's been sort of long overdue, that it's needed a kind of big rethink. I think this is the kind of deal for that to happen. But the fact they're on a streamer, I think initially my gut instinct is they will go with 3 hours because they'll look at it as this is the ad revenue, and this could be issue. Our ratings discourse is going to be going out the fucking window because these fuckers.
Poor Brandon.
Like nothing.
They tell you nothing.
That's dead. Yeah, that's gone. What is going to be interesting is for the money that they are paying, they're going to want this to be a massive success. So they're going to be like, just the analytics are going to be like kind of like through the roof. They're going to be looking, okay, where are people tuning out? Is this too long a show? Because if you think about Netflix series, they don't follow like not every, and you find this quite often for like any program, whether it's drama, whether it's documentary, reality show, the episodes aren't the same length. They are as long as they need to be for that particular show, whether or not they decide that that's what they're going to do. But then if it's sports, you tend to block stuff out. So, you have a good idea of when like a game ends and then how much pre and post show you want for that as well. Are they going to be doing stuff like that? Are they going to look to change the format of it? Are they going to look at it and say, well, actually, if you want the PLEs to be special, maybe they need to do a pre and a post show, which I think would be a better kind of product, to be brutally honest with you for that. But it makes me, and I don't think that'll happen straight away. No. That's me very much like hypothesizing about this for the time being. The PLEs being on there, like Jesus. I mean, if you figure that Peacock feels to me like a streaming service, that'll be dead soon enough. Like there's not enough there. Like even like, in the way that Warner Brothers and Paramount Plus, like Max and Paramount Plus aren't going to make it to the end. You're better off merging at this stage. And Peacock will be going, but Netflix having the PLEs, I think that's just going to raise the kind of eyeball level. And this is the thing about it not being on linear TV. If you're thinking for younger people, it being on Netflix, I think that's the one streaming service that they do have and they do have access to.
It is more of a shop window, isn't it?
Used. It is. I think it is more of a shop window.
It's funny that because it's like WWE, like they tried the network route and realized that while that felt like it made sense at the time, there's a lot of risk involved in launching a streaming service and a lot of debt involved in having a streaming service, as Netflix well know. WWE, I saw it. Somebody described this. I can't remember who it was. They're like like that Simpsons episode with the monorail, just going from town to town, getting 500 million here and 500 million there. Like Peacock, drain them.
Shit show.
Now we're over on Netflix, drain it for a show that's like been literally down. I know obviously it's been good the last year or so, and they've steadied the ship, but overall it's been down year on year.
Define good.
Oh yeah, acceptable. But yeah, who's next? Who else are they going to get their bag from? And like that continues to kind of be the WWE story, and it shows with Vince gone, the lane was clear for them to make these kind of. It was funny seeing him in that TKO shot, ringing the bell in the morning for the stock exchange. It was like a reminder of, I suppose he is still involved, but you're not seeing his name front and center of this. You're seeing Nick Khan, you're seeing Ari Emanuel, you're even seeing Triple H and The Rock more than you're seeing Vince McMahon, which does bring me to the question: do you think this has any effect? It was one of your first reactions on the Vince documentary coming on Netflix. That's the only Netflix WWE adjacent story we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. I assume it's not going to affect it, but like, I suppose if you're about to sign this, if you've signed this big deal and it's about to launch on your network, and I'm sure the creative people are separate from the business people, but do they want to go scorched earth? Probably not. Whether that's intentional or not.
I would have said if he wasn't in the picture, could they have gone scorched earth? Yeah, because you could pin all of the blame and the sins of the company onto Vince McMahon very, very easily. Why? Because 99% of the time he's absolutely fucking guilty. So there isn't an issue with that. It's blame being pinned to a guilty man. I don't have an issue with it. Now I'm wondering, I won't lie, because I think that's where you're going to get people in the room going, right, we can't tarnish a product that we have just spent potentially $5 billion on, or at the very least $2.5 billion on. So are we going to do that? And that kind of level of money, whether or not that pisses off Bill Simmons and Chris Smith, I don't think they're going to give a shit. I think they're going to view it in this way. And it made me kind of wonder for that. It was just like, I was quite dispirited by it. I think there's other documentary stuff they're going to do there, because I know they're not doing Drive to Survive anymore as well, because they don't obviously have, like, in terms of the cost for it as well. And they're wondering whether or not that Formula One's like kind of popularity has peaked and plateaued. I don't think, I think they're going to be replacing it with a ton of WWE based kind of documentary content, of which there's an absolute load of stuff for them to mine for them.
New series you could do, build up the PLEs, all kinds.
I would almost want them to take the approach of keep the Vince show, make that be like its own separate entity, because if nothing else, what you want to do is have it in the conversation. And in the conversation you can have about WWE now as well, we are different, that man isn't here. And then as much as the fact he appeared in front, like in Wall Street, that's always like for the optics of the traders on the New York Stock Exchange, as much as anything else. He didn't have any kind of real being if he does it. So I would like to think that they wouldn't do that, but I'm going to be completely skeptical and say, that they're going to take what they did at the David Beckham documentary, where they don't even mention Rebecca Luce's name, for example, and they don't do that.
True.
And they're just we're going to get that here. I feel it's going to be a kind of like glossing over on that, which is tragic, because the potential of it, of what it could be and what it should be, is something that is completely scathing about this massive figure in US popular culture, or global popular culture, for such a long time, but has always got to dictate the terms of how this story is told, and then you sort of took that away. So I'm not going to be happy if that happens, but
I think the other question as well for me is, obviously, as you alluded to earlier, what does this mean for AEW? It is an element of the story, and I think a lot of people's initial reaction to it's going to be, oh fuck, WWE are just getting bigger and richer, and it's a negative for AEW. But I don't necessarily see it that way. I think Tony Khan's going to be rubbing his hands together, because like it wasn't long ago we were talking about WBD being Warner Brothers Discovery being suitors for WWE. That's out of the equation now. who else can they get if they want like wrestling content? There's no one else unless they go into the NWA. There's no one else for them to go to. So Tony Khan will be like rubbing his hands, waiting in that meeting room for them to come back in. They're probably gonna have to give him what he wants. Obviously, I guess there's the NBA rights side of things does kind of open up a little bit, but maybe it frees money up for USA to go for the NBA rights. Therefore, they're also not going to be a factor. So maybe that dilutes the water a little bit as well on the AEW side. But overall, as you said earlier, the biggest thing's going to be this shows what the value or the inflated value of wrestling cable TV rights are. It's why Tony Khan got in the game in the first place, because he saw the way this was going. He's not going to be taking less money for AEW property. And again, if anything, it puts him in a really strong negotiating position with Warner Brothers Discovery going forward. I think rising tide, all ships is the analogy here, JP. I think that's probably, though, there's a couple of ways it could spin negative for them, but I think mostly he'll probably be happy today, even if he's not enjoying WWE taking the all of the spotlight.
I think that's it, and I'm completely with you on that. Like, you could look at it as like, the Evil Empire has more money than what he knows what to do with. That's fine, and
that's
TKO,
an element of
beneficiaries, and Ari Emanuel are there. The one thing they hate doing is the rising tide lifts all ships. If they're their way, it would be the rising tide lifts their ships, and then they shoot down on the other ships behind them and blow them out of the fucking water. But like you say, I think what this shows to Tony Khan is there is a very much an overinflated value. Let's face it, for the kind of ratings that wrestling gets, there is an overinflated value. I think if he was going to take some lessons from this, it is you don't need the idea. And I think this is, Warner Brothers Discovery was flirting with WWE. I don't think Tony Khan needs to, and he'll do this kind of publicly, but behind closed doors, he should be thinking, how do we separate these deals out? How do we separate these programs out? How do we separate out a Collision from a Rampage, from a Dynamite ultimately, and do what WWE has done? Why? Because that's how you make the most money. That's how fucking NXT is getting 70 million a year, for God's sakes. Like that's ridiculous figures, like for what that is worth, and that he should look to kind of shop around. And that Warner Brothers Discovery are going to kind of need like AEW kind of even more if they're not going to be having any other companies in there as well. I would also like to say the knock-on effect, this is probably the timing wise, is kind of good for a TNA if they're looking to kind of sell their TV rights, and Anthem are looking to do something with that as well. I think he looks like an evil tech billionaire, doesn't he?
This is the Rock on screen here for audio listeners. Rock's on is it Fox he's on? Oh, the CNBC, is it? That's what he's on currently as we talk.
the management speak, corporate speak channel where you just they have conversations, but I couldn't tell you exactly what they're saying. I think these are the things that Tony Khan needs to take away from this, is that there is like for AEW, we spoke about being a $1 billion company. I weirdly think that's kind of more likely now than what I would have done yesterday, because now the streaming service bits are opened up. He should be looking to see, I don't know, there will be, what other interested parties are going to be there? Amazon still going to be looking for content? Like, you could ship stuff over.
Lost the Premier League, right, haven't they?
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad business partner. Like, I really don't. I think that's, obviously there's Warner Brothers Discovery, but there's also like other interested parties out there who they're going to be able to go to as well at the same time. So I think because the WWE situation is finalised, it's just sort of cleared the lane for him to go, right, who exactly is interested in this? And I don't think he'll say it publicly, but I don't think he's going to have that kind of level of loyalty for Warner Brothers Discovery, talking about what great partners they are. Just going to be, all right, you wanted to flirt with them. That's right, you wanted to have a sneaky day out. Well, I didn't know. Well, fuck me, I've found out, and guess what? They've hooked up with the other lad who's got a ton of cash. So you're kind of screwed over.
On that note, the other kind of element of the story that we've skipped over that I've got on the screen at the minute as well, which was going to be the big news story today, other than, again, how fucking great that Punk Cody segment was. Maybe I'll squeeze in 5 minutes on that at the end of this and get a little bit of chat on it. But like, Dwayne Johnson being on the WWE board, on the TKO board, like, unbelievable. Like the deal he seems to have gotten with them. Apparently, he's getting the rights to the Rock name by joining the TKO board. The money amount is hilarious because they've added an extra $7 at the end for our Dwayne, because of course they have. It's 30 million and $7 is the amount he's getting to join the board.
Jesus.
But like probably should have saw it coming when this was announced earlier today, JP, that this was likely to happen. 30 million in stock, 30 million and $7 in stock. He's gotten some royalty payments from WWE in 2023. Apparently, the SEC filing said as well. But that by itself was gigantic. Like, as Rover joked about on Twitter today, JP, Dwayne Johnson got onto the WWE board before Triple H did.
Yep.
You know, that's interesting, isn't it? But obviously, he goes way back with Nick Khan. Nick Khan's been a gigantic part of his business, you know, going back years. And, you know, one hand will grease the other. And Dwayne could probably do with the money based on how some of his Hollywood career is going. But, like, what a world we're in now where, like, Dwayne Johnson's got this, you know, that just gigantic seat at the literal head of the table when it comes to WWE. You can't get lost in it either.
Do you know what? I was thinking about this. Like, I mean, this is just like incredible. One, I would like to think that Triple H's role isn't as secure in WWE as Ken would have thought it was, just partly down to sheer bloody minded spite, in the sense that he is going to have to The Rock is someone he's going to be answerable to. I always think it's interesting him going for the trademarking of The Rock as well, because Dwayne Johnson has never rolled off the tongue as well as The Rock. Like, that has always sort of necessarily stuck.
He made Dwayne cool.
Like,
Dwayne was a very uncool name, like Dwayne Bruce. You know, you made it all right.
Yeah.
You made it okay.
Dwayne Gill. But it does make me think whether or not the United Football League, which is the XFL and USFL merger that happened last year, is that going to be incorporated into TKO as like a kind of like a football division? And so there'll be rights fees for that, and they'll be able to get something with that as being part of kind of TKO, because they're going to have that kind of like as a sports kind of conglomerate, they are, you know, they're pretty fucking massive in there in the meantime as well. And it means that you'll probably be like, let's face it, for a degree of it, like, and it says here in the Variety report, it says as it's widely speculated that he'll be returning to WWE for a match against his cousin and current WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns in his first match since 2016. That's what I've got on Variety on this, which isn't admittedly, it's not Fightful, is it? Or fucking Post. I mean, it's a weird
That's sources though, mate.
State of affairs, but they do have sources. They would, you know, this is the kind of thing that makes me think, right, I think that's happening. I think that definitely is going to be part of this as well at the same time, and it secures his legacy, doesn't it, at this stage, and helps with the TKO. It's just like they kind of needed that very much, that public face and that TKO board, because that's not Ari Emanuel's strengths. It's not probably where he wants to be, or that other bloke who appeared for a lot and started chatting loads as well. You put The Rock there, and that's something. I also imagine what it's going to be is him phasing out his film career for like, it's going to be very, very sporadically that he actually does anything at all on that front. Because let's face it, I mean, the Black Adam like disaster and the other kind of like lukewarm like box office for recent films, as well as sort of, I think, put paid to some of that stuff.
Well, there we go. That's the lay of the land. Rock is now in charge. WWE has untold funds. We are in a fucking bizarro world. But yeah, WWE keeps winning. Like, that is the story of the last couple of years. For patrons and for YouTube members, I'm gonna do a little bit of a roundup of some of the other news that's come in the last.